When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flaschenberg. I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies, and today we're diving into the world of integrative medicine, acupuncture, and women's health with my guest, Nicole Kruck. One of the things I really appreciate about this conversation, it's not about choosing Eastern medicine versus Western medicine, but exploring how they work together to support people in a really holistic manner. In this episode, we talk about fertility support, IVF, pregnancy discomforts, breech positioning. In fact, breech positioning and induction are two of the top reasons that I'm constantly offering my students the idea of acupuncture because it really can work. We also talk a little bit about postpartum recovery. We also talk about how acupuncture and bodywork can work together. And we also talk about some of the big misconceptions about acupuncture, mainly the needles. They're really, really, really small. And then, of course, we talk about when it's appropriate and maybe not appropriate to get acupuncture. I think you're going to get a lot from this conversation. But let me also tell you a little bit about our guest. So Nicole Kruck is the founder of Fertile Garden Wellness in New York City. She holds an Oriental Medicine master's degree from the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine and is a graduate of the historic Swedish Institute of Massage in New York City. She's also an instructor of acupuncture at SUNY Downstate Medical in Brooklyn and has been working with holistic treatment and acupuncture for the last 29 years. She has such an amazing heart and is so offering and so giving and such great information. I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation. Now, before we get to my talk with Nicole, I always love to keep you up to date about what's happening at Prenatal Yoga Center. The best thing to do is head to our website, prenatalYogaCenter.com, and sign up for our newsletter, because there each week, every Sunday, you're going to get the newsletter with our latest classes, our giveaways. We just had a few months ago, our May is for Motherhood. We had our June special. All of that you're going to find out in the newsletter. You're also going to find out the latest podcast and latest blog, and I always give a tip of the week. So head over there. And if you're a yoga teacher, we also have a weekly newsletter just for yoga teachers. I give some of my favorite tips about teaching prenatal and postnatal yoga. Again, all that's found on our website, prenatalYogaCenter.com. I want to take a moment and thank you, listeners, for those who have left a rating and review. It helps people find us. It helps grow our community. And if you have yet to do so, please take a moment to head to wherever you're listening to this podcast on and leave a rating and review. I also want to thank you for those that have reached out with ideas and even suggestions of people of who should be on the podcast. That's actually how I got today's guest. One of my students thought Nicole would be a great guest. She organized this conversation. So thank you, Jessica, for doing that. All right, that is enough of me. We're going to take a super quick break. When we come back, please enjoy my conversation with Nicole.
This episode is brought to you by Facebook. So you were scrolling on Marketplace, and there it was, the bike you'd been searching for. You sent a message, and it turned out the seller was super chatty, kind of funny, and an avid cyclist. The next thing you know, you're in a cycling crew. Well, a community cycling group. The thing about Facebook, you might find more than what you're looking for. From a browse to a bike ride, this summer find more on Facebook.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today, Deb?
I'm doing so well. It's so bright and sunny out, and that just makes me happy. So I'm in a good headspace, but I'm super excited to talk about acupuncture. I'm sure you've probably seen this. There was a New York Times article recently about the science of acupuncture, and my friends were talking about it. I'm like, we've known that's real for a while. So did you get a chance to see that one?
I think I started to read it and then something else happened, but I was so happy to see that it's getting out into the mainstream now.
Yeah. Which is great because I've believed in it and I've used it on my own body for, like 25 years. I've been seeing acupuncturists on and off, and it's something I so believe in. So I'm so excited to have the chance to chat with you about this and, integrative medicine. So before we dive into all my questions, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and what drew you to women's health and integrative medicine?
Well, it's such a great question because, I was my own case study. I came about, I came about traditional medicine uh, through my own experience of having very painful periods since the very beginning, painful intercourse. My doctors were basically saying that I had a tipped uterus, but, don't worry about it. It's normal because everybody else has, a lot of women have that same issue. So, you can either have a hysterectomy or ride it out through menopause. And I was like 20 at the time. And something in me just said, you know what? I know there's something else. I know there's an alternative for me. And several years later, I was in massage school, and one of my friends had gone to Belize and was staying at a resort next to a woman named Rosita Arvigo, who was a healer and worked with traditional healers there. And she was like, I see you at this place and I see you walking on this medicine trail. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But she had brought me back a book called Sestun, My Apprenticeship with a Maya Healer. Rosita had worked with a gentleman named Donalikio Ponti, who was a traditional healer for his village, and she met him when he was in his 80s, and she was probably in her late 30s, and she would follow him around doing case studies. And one of the case studies in this book was about a woman who had painful periods. She had a fall. I had a bad fall when I was a kid on my sacrum, and that's really important information because some of the nerves that feed, like the uterus and the bladder, come from that area, and it was never addressed. And then I became a gymnast, and I was doing a lot of aerobic stuff and had more falls. And in this country, we don't have any uterine care. It's just out of sight, out of mind, because we have access to, medications and surgeries and doctors, whereas in a lot of other countries, they don't have that. So, the grandmas and the aunties and the midwives, they're on children, especially when they're younger, because they're the ones that are having a lot of falls because they're very active. So anyhow, I tracked this woman down, and I was like, I have to learn how to do it. And there were other women that were like, we got to learn how to do this too. Because we're seeing so many women with just painful periods and endometriosis and fibroids and all sorts of stuff, and nobody's really treating them. The doctors are saying that basically it's not a big deal. They can manage some of the pain with medications and possibly surgeries when it gets really bad down the road. So one of the things that's really important about this is that I learned how to do a 5-minute self-care massage on myself, and it was life-changing. Within 3 months of doing like 5 minutes of the specific massage, I was able to, number one, not have any more painful periods for the first time in my entire life. But I was also able to strengthen the ligaments to bring my uterus back into place.
Oh, wow.
Which made my uterus not tipped anymore. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I have to share this information with women. So it kind of became my torch. Like I just really wanted to help all the women that were having problems with their periods, trouble conceiving, problems with pregnancies. And so I've been doing this for like 29 years now, and I still love it. And I still get so excited when someone comes in and says, oh, wow, this is the first time I didn't have painful periods, or I was able to get out of the bathroom and actually go to work for my period, or I wasn't having painful, intercourse anymore, or I have 2 kids now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into that. And then because of that, it was so powerful, I was able to do a lot of physical stuff, which actually helps blood flow and which brings in the hormones and helps to regulate things. But then I went through menopause, and I was starting to have a lot of when I was in perimenopause, I was having a lot of symptoms. I was, I was having the hot flashes and, a little anxiety. And, I started going to an acupuncturist, and I did a couple of sessions with them and some herbs, and all of a sudden my symptoms just really diminished down to almost nothing. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is the other piece that I could use in my practice that would help to elevate my level of care for my patients even more. So I went back to school at 50 and got my master's degree in Oriental Medicine at Pacific College here in New York City. And it's been such a game changer because I feel like I can treat my patients now even more holistically using, sometimes massage, but acupuncture is just really magical. It has been able to do so many things that, I would have had to do like a lot of muscle work to relieve a back pain. Now I do a little bit of massage, but really the acupuncture has this just amazing way to help, with pain, and also to with tendons and everything else. So it really helps to relax the body to help with, musculoskeletal issues as well, that I had, spent a lot of time, using my back to work on people.
I love that. Yeah, I love acupuncture. I remember the very first time I encountered it, I had a rotator cuff issue, and the orthopedist I saw was like, "You're going to need surgery." And I'm like, ah. So I said something to someone in a yoga class, and he happened to be an acupuncturist. He's like, "Let's do a couple sessions." And I don't know, it was maybe like a month or 2, and I did not need surgery. And I've had many,
Amazing.
I know, and I've had many situations like that. And we'll talk about how this helps fertility and pregnancy and induction.
Mm-hmm.
But for my own kids, I also did acupuncture to help get pregnant. I did Oriental medicine. I swear it tasted like dirt. Like the woman could have literally gone to Central Park and put it in a bag and be like, "Here you go." And I took it. And then also for induction. So I'm excited to dive into that. So I guess one thing we should back up, because we're talking about acupuncture in Eastern medicine, and some folks that might be new may not completely understand that. So can you explain how you view the body and health differently, how acupuncture and Eastern medicine view the body differently than traditional Western medical model?
Yeah, so I think they're both very valid, and certain things shine more than others for certain conditions. But like basically, the thing about Western medicine is sometimes they throw the baby out with the bathwater, because they have this amazing ability to be able to do all these treatments for, to be able to have a CAT scan and blood work and all of this. So they can see things on a different level. But a lot of times what they're doing is they're just treating, like if you think of a tree, right? You think of the roots in the ground, and then the trunk, and then all these branches. So a lot of times Western medicine will treat a lot of branch things. So, you have a headache, and they can give you some medications for the headaches. But where traditional medicine really comes in is they want to treat you, they want to get rid of your headache, but they also want to know how it started, like what was the root of this problem. So that's where we kind of look at the person as a whole person. Like for say someone who's having a headache, we have hundreds of different kinds of headaches, but maybe we have like 6 different types of headaches where sometimes sometimes Western medicine will just look at like, oh, do you have a regular headache or do you have a migraine? So we get really in depth into a good intake with somebody to see, like, have you had them in the past? But what kind of foods are you eating? Are there any things that in your diet that might be causing some issues, and like a gluten issue or something like that that's causing the headache, instead of just like giving you a medication or giving you a treatment and just trying to stop it. Then we really want to like unravel everything and see like what happened at the root so that they don't keep coming back.
I really appreciate that. So I know, and so you're really nicely explaining they're not, traditional medicine and Western medicine, they're not at opposing forces. So what are some situations where integrative therapies can complement things like fertility treatments and OB care, and let's throw in postpartum recovery as well?
I think that acupuncture is really good for definitely for periods, to help regulate the periods, which is going to help you conceive. It's also going to help you during your pregnancy and also postpartum. When I have my patients, I think of the whole train. I do get a lot of women that come for fertility, but then I treat them all the way through. So I think it's really important that that when I'm working with someone, that we get that foundation set. We want to make sure that the periods are really regulated, that they're getting a good hormonal feed, that any kind of symptoms that women are having, such as like, sometimes you get like PMS symptoms where you get more hungry, or your moods change, or you're getting some pain or some spotting, that type of stuff. So we really want to make sure that we get all those symptoms taken care of, so that when we're ready to plant, that it's just easier for someone to conceive. And then when they do conceive, whether it's conceiving naturally, we can help. Acupuncture really shines with helping someone to conceive naturally. It also is really good with assisted cycles as well. So it can help. It can help definitely, like with the treatments, especially like say someone's doing an IVF cycle. So sometimes they when they give them medication, they're just trying to see, is this standard medication enough for this woman to be able to produce enough eggs, or are they more sensitive to it? So they kind of want to get a little baseline. So sometimes you can get a little overstimulated. You can get symptoms such as, bloating, or, headaches, that type of thing. So that's where acupuncture comes in, and it helps to mediate those symptoms, but it's also shown to help follicle stimulation as well. And sometimes they get concerned that you can overstim, that the medications that they're giving you can overstim, but that's usually because somebody's receiving too much. Normally, it's not a problem, and it really helps them develop, and it can also help the quality. I've seen many women who come in who just they were getting, a good number of eggs, but the quality wasn't great. So I feel like the two of those together, acupuncture can really help both of those. And then it also helps the lining. So sometimes the lining can be a little thin and they're a little hesitant to transfer. And that's where acupuncture is really good, along with like moxa, and, sometimes I'll use like red light or some other kind of treatments with it as well. So, and then during pregnancy, it's beautiful because, it helps with, any kind of, when I'm looking at someone who first gets pregnant, like I think like people sometimes don't want to get alternative treatments when they're pregnant, especially in that first trimester. They're just, really a little bit nervous. But that's the beauty of acupuncture, because there's certain points that we definitely stay off of, because we're looking at this point for everything to hold in the body, especially in the uterus. We want to hold everything up until the end of the pregnancy, when we want to help things to like move down. So it can help keep everything lifted. It can help with the hormonal feedback, but also it helps to regulate like some anxiety, sleep issues, constipation, especially if you're on like progesterone. It's really good for nausea. So for morning sickness, even those little seed bands, those are really great. Those have a little dome on the inside of these little, they look like tennis cuffs, and those go on an acupressure point, pericardium 6, which helps with nausea and digestion, and it also helps anxiety. So not only do I do acupuncture, but sometimes I'll do ear seeds with people too, so they can take those home. It works like reflexology. There's a map of the body in all parts of your body, your hands, your feet, your eyes. And so the seeds go on acupressure points. So that can help with anxiety and sleep and nausea as well. So it's like a little take home treatment to extend the treatment. But it's great to get somebody in that first trimester, because they're going through a lot of unknown factors. And so I feel like, especially practicing in New York, a lot of women are, they're not around their families and a lot of their friends. So they feel a little isolated. So it's also nice to come in and just like get a treatment and have someone just take care of you, and someone who's like gone through the experience and knows like what's going on, and just have someone to talk and care for you. So a lot of people I know, besides getting the benefits of acupuncture and massage, they really like that aspect too.
Yeah, that connection.
Yeah, because sometimes there's, early miscarriages, or sometimes they don't understand, especially if they're doing assisted cycles, they don't understand what the doctors are saying, because, they want to give them good care, but a lot of times they don't have enough time to, they have 5 minutes, whereas I have an hour usually with somebody to really like be with them and kind of hold their hand a little bit. So
that sounds amazing. I love the work you're doing. And it sounds like, and I love that you laid out so many of the reasons and how it helps the nausea, the anxiety. Let's also throw in back pain and muscle tension.
yes.
And I even recommend it for my students that are like, I'm having horrible acid reflux. I feel like I actually recommend it for pretty much everything. It's kind of one of my go-tos for if we can't support it in yoga. I'm like, there's always acupuncture. They work beautifully together. But are there times when acupuncture might be contraindicated during pregnancy?
Yeah, so there's certain points that we always stay off of. And I would also say, like, if women go to get their nails done on a regular basis, or go to like a foot spa, like you really kind of want to go to someone who's like literally certified in either massage, or someone who has a degree in acupuncture, because sometimes you'll go to a spa and on your vacation, and you're like, oh, I get to finally get a massage, and they'll just throw someone in who they say can do prenatal, but they really don't have that. And so there's not a lot of contraindications, but we want to be really careful. I mean, if there is any kind of imminent miscarriage coming up possibility, we wouldn't do acupuncture and massage. If there is, I'm trying to think, sometimes there can be like issues with like clots. But usually mostly if there's some kind of real caution, the patients have already been told by their doctor, like, you can't do acupuncture, you can't do massage. But we don't always have to work on like I don't do any massage in the pelvis or on the sacrum, and I don't do any needles there in the first trimester. Because in the first trimester, we're wanting everything to really like secure in. So we don't want to be doing any kind of moving. I've had a lot of women with like placenta previa, but unless they're on bed rest, if it's very mild, sometimes the massage can really help, and the acupuncture too, because it helps to get, better circulation and hormonal feed there. So I feel like that's helpful. I can't really think of anything else.
Well, that's great. That just shows how great it is for you.
It's been around for thousands of years, this medicine. That's the difference. Western medicine has been around for, like 80, 90 years, and they can do some wonderful things. But also acupuncture started because, they would go to towns and they would find out what the healers were using to help with headaches. And what kind of, were they were doing like moxa and cupping and all this kind of stuff way back when. And they'd be like, oh, okay, so how do you do that? And then they would talk to the patient. So it's really been through trial and error for many years. And they also had to really sit with people. It's, we not only do an intake on paper, but we notice how people come in. Like, do they look a little nervous when they come in, or is their voice like really low and tired? Do they look pale? Is there any kind of odors coming from them? Like, we're putting all this information into our little system, and we actually work off of, when we go to school, we learn everything in Western medicine. We learn how to diagnose and treat someone in Western medicine, but then we take the other side and we look at these different patterns in traditional medicine and in TCM. And so we're looking, is it something that's going on that's excessive? Like, you look at somebody and they have a really red face, right? That's kind of an excess pattern. It could have been because there was something deficient, and then somebody, and then it heated up and that happened. Or it could be something that's very deficient. You see someone who's been sick for a couple of days, right? They have no energy, even though they're feeling a little bit better. They're pale, they have no energy, their digestion's off, their elimination's off, that type of thing. So we're looking at excesses and deficiencies, and then we're looking to see in these different organ systems, like, how are things are there a lot of symptoms of like how the blood is moving through the body? So like something that we see a lot is something called liver qi stagnation. And that's something, when you go to the acupuncturist, they usually say that a lot. And, it can be because the blood isn't moving through the vessel. Like, if you have a hose, right, and you put a normal amount of water through that hose, it just moves easy. The water goes in, you get the same pressure of water that goes in coming out. But if there's an excess, sometimes what can happen is there's so much energy behind it that it just kind of spurts out, right? And it doesn't like water that one little spot that you were looking at, right? Or so that could be like an excess. Or it kind of goes for a while, and then it trickles down, and then it goes up again. So we're really trying to get that blood and qi to move through the vessels nice and easy.
Thank you. I love that analogy of the garden hose. I actually had not thought of that before. All right, I want to take a break, but when we come back, I'd love to talk about acupuncture and breech babies and induction, because that is definitely something I recommend to my students. So start to think about that. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Facebook. So you were scrolling on Marketplace, and there it was, the bike you'd been searching for. You sent a message, and it turned out the seller was super chatty, kind of funny, and an avid cyclist. The next thing you know, you're in a cycling crew. Well, a community cycling group. The thing about Facebook, you might find more than what you're looking for. From a browse to a bike ride, this summer find more on Facebook.
Low energy, unfocused, foggy? You might be dehydrated. Gatorade Zero powders have been scientifically designed to help improve hydration balance in the body. With a clinically proven electrolyte blend and no artificial colors or flavors. Great tasting hydration no matter where you're going. Shop now online or at retailers nationwide. Gatorade hydrates better than water. Is it in you? Symptoms noted are signs of mild to moderate dehydration. Consult a healthcare professional if symptoms persist.
Okay, so we are back. So I feel like two of the most common times, besides just like aches, pains to go to acupuncture, but helping turn a breech baby and helping with induction. So I guess let's start with breech. I never understood how burning moxibustion at the pinky toe encourages a baby to go head down. So I guess maybe explain how acupuncture works and then what is moxibustion and how it helps encourage a baby to go head down.
Yeah, so there's like I said before, during the pregnancy, we want to keep everything up. We want to keep the energy like up. But coming towards labor and delivery, we want to start moving things down. And so we can go to points. There's a couple of points like on the shoulder, but there's points down below in the feet that help to that we can use acupuncture on, and we can use the moxibustion. Moxibustion is something called it's an herb called mugwort, and mugwort is a plant. It grows all over New York City. You'll see it a lot in the park. It's pretty tall. It's a little, people just think it's a weed, but it's a really great woman's herb. And they also say that it tends to be a little magical because it treats a lot of things. But one of the powers that moxa has is it's very warming. So they take these things. You can use moxa a couple of different ways. They take little rice seeds of it, they roll it up, and sometimes they'll burn it, on the skin, but with something underneath it, like ginger or something. But sometimes what they'll do is, or normally what you'll see is they'll make like sticks out of it, almost like a cigar. So there's moxa that's a little bit more loose. And that's smokes a little bit more, but like in New York City where we can't open a lot of windows, they'll use the smokeless, which is like very compressed.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when you light it, it holds heat in it. And so what it does is it goes into that point, bladder 67, which some of the points have like hormonal connections to them. So they can help to like release maternal placental estrogen and help with the prolactin levels. And so that's what it helps to do, is it helps to soften the uterus and helps it to like contract a little bit so things can move. So when you use bladder 67, the point on the toe, it can be used for labor and delivery, but that's not our intention when treating a breech baby. But it helps to move. It helps the uterus to actually relax a little bit, and it warms it so that it helps the baby to move if it's meant to move. Sometimes there's an issue, right? Sometimes the cord can be wrapped around or something is not right, and so a lot of times those babies will not move. The uterus is very smart, and so is the baby. If they're not meant to move, they're not going to move. But sometimes they can, especially, we'll start treating for, for labor and delivery prep, earlier, like weeks like 34, 35. Well, actually, we'll start with the breech in week like 34, 35. Week 35, 38, we're helping with the labor and delivery. Then we're, helping things to move if the baby's in place.
All right, so let's shift to induction. I love that you explained breech. So that was great. And I did with both my kids, I had a treatment 2 days before both of them had their labor start. So I'm only a case of two, but I really do feel like that the acupuncture helps. So when do you advise someone to start induction treatments, and what should they expect from it? Because again, I'm only going to speak from my personal experience. Most of the time I get acupuncture, they get the needles in, I get a nice rest for 20, 30 minutes, and I'm nice and warm, and then I come out. I remember for both my induction treatments, it was strong. It wasn't relaxing. I felt a lot going on in my body. So that could just be me. So give me the lowdown on induction treatments.
So I like to have someone come in just a little bit earlier for induction. A lot of times people will come like a week or two before. But I think it's really good to start the process a little bit sooner just because your body is in a state of a lot of excess. And so that's why it probably felt a little bit more intense when you got acupuncture for labor and delivery, just because there's no more room. Everything's kind of backing up as far as the blood and the chi. So I would like to have someone come in, maybe starting around week like 35 would be great, because not only is it going to help with labor and delivery, but it's also going to help, kind of the emotional aspect. And, by that time, your body is usually in a lot more pain from, trying to sleep and move around. And we just want to get everything ready for the delivery time. And, you can come anytime you want. You can come the day before. I've had people come the day before they had a induction scheduled, and they didn't need it. So,
is there any time that you'd recommend someone not have a session for induction purposes?
I think that if their doctor had said something to them, if there was a medical concern, yeah. That's probably the only time that I can think of offhand.
Is there one misconception people have about acupuncture or integrative medicine that you wish that could change?
I think it's just important to sometimes just be open to something new. The first time I ever had acupuncture, I had the most intense pain, and I was on a retreat and I didn't have any aspirin or Midol with me. And my friend said, let me do some acupuncture. And I said, oh, I really don't like needles. Like, I'm really afraid of the needles. And I said, well, you could do one needle. And in a half hour or less, my pain went away and I didn't even need anything. So I think just being willing to be open to, trying some other things. It's not that you have to stick with, oh, I did, 2 appointments and I really hated it. And, just be willing to be a little open to something else and know that you can use them in tandem. It's not either or, that's the beauty of medicine. It's taken from many different things. And so I think just being willing to be a little bit open and to be able to just talk about it too. Like, if you're like, I'm afraid of acupuncture, I love it when someone says that to me, so that I can really just explain the whole process to them, instead of just saying, okay, lie down, I'm going to put needles in you.
Well, let's talk about the needles though, because I think people, when they think about needles, I hate getting my blood drawn. Like, it is a point of great anxiety for me, but I have no problem with acupuncture. So can you talk a little bit about really the size of it? Like, they're so small, and every now and then I do feel like a little sharpness, but for the most part, I also think it's the acupuncturist putting the needles in, because I've had some that are a little stronger handed than others. Will you talk about, so please talk about the needles themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Every acupuncturist is different, and there's many different styles. And, but basically you can fit 20, acupuncture needles into a hypodermic needle. So they're really fine. You can tie them in a knot. You can actually even lay on them if they're in the right position. most people don't feel them. Sometimes you can feel them. I think of acupuncture as like the subway system. So when everything's moving really well, those you don't even notice anything. You get on the train, you get to where you're going. But what happens is that when like the local line goes down, you have to like wait a little bit longer, but the express comes, and so maybe you're a little agitated or 5 minutes late, but you get to your destination. But if like Grand Central Times Square is down, then it's like, oh my goodness, like, you're like, why didn't I pee before? I'm going to get yelled at, like your anxieties levels go up. So what these needles do is they go into these little stations, the little train stations, and they open up the lines. So, and your body's doing all the work. You're doing the healing. I know where to put the needles, but your body's doing it. So I know that's a little bit off kilter, but I wanted people to know really what acupuncture does. So I think of it as like when I'm putting a needle in somebody, I'm like, I have my little magic wand and I'm going into the station and their body's saying, oh, okay, we'll get our workers to make sure that we get this cleared out so everybody can get to where they're going, all the chi and the blood and the hormones and the lymph and everything else. So
I love that. I love that. I had someone work on my back recently, and she did like maybe 4 points on each side, my upper back. And I thought, she's like, okay, just kind of work the needles in, and I already took them out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that really going to do enough? And then she worked on my front, and I could not believe, I'm like, that really did something. She really opened something up. All right, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents? We will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Facebook. So you were scrolling on Marketplace, and there it was, the bike you'd been searching for. You sent a message, and it turned out the seller was super chatty, kind of funny, and an avid cyclist. The next thing you know, you're in a cycling crew. Well, a community cycling group. The thing about Facebook, you might find more than what you're looking for. From a browse to a bike ride, this summer find more on Facebook.
Okay, we are back. So what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
Well, there's a really good, there's a great resource online for acupressure points that you can do with, that you can stimulate just with your hands, or, you can get moxa and you can work those points. Those are really good for, labor and delivery. So to give your partner something to do, while you're there. And then I think that, Deb, you're going to hate me because I just got lost again.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll just pick it up from there. I'll just start over. Okay, let me try. Okay, we're back. So what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
I can't think of anything. I'm sorry, I didn't get to that point. Give me, I mean, I think the labor and delivery stuff is good.
All right. So take a moment, think if there's any final tip, maybe get your partner involved.
Yes.
Yes. I will ask you that question one more time. Okay, we're back. So what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
I think that acupressure is a really lovely thing to use during labor and delivery, but also afterwards for, just tiredness, any kind of muscle aches, any kind of anxiety. And there's some points online that you can download. They're really easy to use, but it's a great way to connect with your partner and to make them be a part of it too, because sometimes they feel like, you've been doing a lot of the work and they want to help you, but they don't know what they can do. So I think looking into acupressure is a really wonderful way to just have a way to help and connect and make you both feel good.
Oh, I love that. Where can people find your work?
You can find me online. I have my company is called Fertile Garden Wellness, and I am on Instagram, same tag, and I'm on the Upper West Side.
I know you're now one of our neighbors.
I'm so excited.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Just down the street, 69th and Riverside.
Hey, well, thank you, Nicole. I love talking about supporting people during fertility and pregnancy and birth and postpartum. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge of acupuncture and Eastern medicine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays, and just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes, they put you on hold, your doctor doesn't take your plan, game over. We see you, so we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc, search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly, no cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.